Welcome to vlog 2, skills versus capacities on speed and agility. The aim of this vlog is to identify whether an athlete has skill or capacity issues affecting their performance, and then identifying ways for the athlete to develop these. When looking at an athlete with capacity issues, I will be looking at elements such as mobility, stability, strength and power, and previous injuries. These type of capacities cannot be developed through verbal cueing alone. On the other hand, skill issues are related to an athlete's understanding of a movement, their previous exercise history, or the fact that they are a beginner. An athlete with skill issues can be developed through the use of verbal cueing and supplementary activities. The first component we're going to look at will be speed. It is important to understand that speed can be calculated using distance divided by time. Athlete 1 is an experienced gym trainer with background in football and rugby. We're able to see athlete 1 performing a flying start and a 2-point start acceleration drill. Despite the athlete being able to achieve a good triple extension line and a positive shin angle, I believe there are limitations linked to power due to the ankle and hip. The step back in the 2-point start could be an indication to the lack of power, with the athlete utilising this step back to generate greater power output. To support my theory, athlete 1 has performed A skips, A marches, dorsal flexion assessment, hip mobility assessment, and a long jump, both unilateral and bilaterally. During some of these assessments, verbal cueing was used to rule out skill-based issues. Athlete 1 demonstrated limitations with the ankle and hip mobility, and also during his standing long jump, where it was below average given his back squat. We can clearly see how these factors are affecting the athlete, as during bounding there is no consistency between the left and the right leg, one demonstrating more vertical force and the other one more horizontal. And the lack of ankle stability could lead to inefficient movement mechanics, additional rotations as a compensatory movement, because during the acceleration phase, ground contact time is increased to generate enough force to overcome inertia. To develop these, we will be using the wall drive and A skips to develop the athlete's knee drive. To develop the athlete's power aspect, we'll be working on eccentric loaded box jump squats and sled pulls. To develop the athlete's ankle stability, we will be working on the forward hop and stick, and also staggered stances. To recap, the issues were identified with the ankle stability and mobility, and the hip mobility affecting the power output. And these are the reasons why that verbal cueing would not be sufficient to develop this athlete, hence why he is a capacity limited athlete. Athlete 2 is a female athlete who has limited experience in this type of training but performs large amounts of Les Mills training. To start with, athlete 2 was asked to perform a flying start and a 3-point acceleration drill, where they were able to demonstrate low levels of positive shin angle and knee drive. I was also able to identify issues surrounding the ankle position and the forward lean, which are imperative in acceleration. To confirm my theory and rule out any capacity issues, I had the athlete perform mobility tests on the ankles and hips and a power output from a standing long jump. The results highlighted that this athlete has good mobility of the ankle and the hip, with no pain felt by the athlete during the performance of these. This highlights my theory that this athlete is lacking the necessary skills to produce efficient movement rather than lack of capacity. To develop this athlete, I utilised A skips and A marches to develop the athlete's mechanics of the movement, and I also used a falling start. Verbal cueing was used with both of these. We can clearly see that Through the use of verbal cueing during A skips, A march and a falling acceleration start, the athlete is able to demonstrate a far better ankle position and a trunk position, although the forward lean is not optimal. Although a forward lean can be linked to an athlete's power output, I do not believe working on the power with this athlete would have benefited them before developing their skill levels due to the movement mechanics being inefficient. When we compare the two athletes, it is clear to see that they both have similar issues revolving around the ankle position. Athlete 2 also has the trunk flexion. When we try to develop these athletes, athlete 1 would not benefit from cueing due to the fact that they have the ankle issue with the mobility. If we compare this to athlete 2, we can use verbal cueing to get them into a more mechanically efficient position, and therefore they will be able to generate the power in a more effective manner. The second component we'll be looking at will be agility, and this is where an athlete will accelerate and then decelerate into a turn and then accelerate again in a different direction. Athlete 1 is a male who has a background in surfing and paddle sports, has limited experience in this type of training and has a previous injury to the left ankle. We can see athlete 1 performing a side shuffle into a diagonal forward acceleration movement pattern. There appears to be clear difference between the left and the right side. To view this from a different angle, athlete 1 performs a 5-10-5, and we can clearly see that they are hesitant on the left-hand side as the foot supinates and goes into a plantar flexion just after landing and before setting off during the cut. As a result of the altered mechanics that the athlete has taken, in particular on the left-hand side, it is highly likely that they will be unable to utilise the stretch shortening cycle move to aid power output in this movement. To confirm my theory, athlete 1 was put through a range of tests on ankle mobility, hip mobility, glute strength and overall lower body power. The results of these showed that the athlete struggled for ankle mobility, hip mobility on the right leg and glute strength of the left leg. To conclude, the lack of ankle mobility, especially in the left leg, could be down to the previous ankle injury and therefore the lack of strength in it. To develop the issues highlighted, we will be working with lateral hops and lateral hop sticks, zigzags with stick, pogos as well, to develop the ankle stability in the lateral movement. To work on the athlete's specific power coming out of the cut, we'll be working on resisted lateral and multi-directional acceleration and also the basic sled push as well to develop lower body horizontal power. To develop the athlete's weakness with the glutes, I would recommend a glute bridge exercise. Athlete 2 is a beginner in this type of training and has a background in Les Mills training. As we can see, athlete 2 is performing a side shuffle to a cut and followed by a diagonal forward acceleration. We can clearly see that there's a difference between the left and the right foot. On the right foot, the athlete distributes the weight towards the outside part of the foot, causing the weight to move in the opposite direction, therefore the athlete needing to correct their movement strategy. Whereas on the left-hand side, the athlete produces a better position and the foot, it has the weight distributed to the inside. But it must be noted that although it is a better position than the right, it is far from optimal. To support the analysis, athlete 2 performed a range of tests including a unilateral and bilateral standing long jump, the 5-10-5, ankle mobility and hip mobility tests. The athlete 2 was able to demonstrate good levels of hip mobility and ankle mobility, and although the power output was slightly lower, there was no significant difference between the left and right output. However, I do not feel having a primary focus of power for this athlete would be recommended due to the level of skill demonstrated. To develop the athlete's 2 skill in this area, we'll be breaking it down into the in and out of the cut elements, focusing on lateral bounding with sticks to multi-directional acceleration,